right, so get this. Picture Argentina in the 1990s.
Yeah.
A murder rocks a small town. But this wasn't just like your average crime, you know?
Right.
This thing exposed like a whole underbelly of corruption, power, and a family's just relentless fight for justice. We're diving deep into the shocking case of María Soledad Morales.
What gets me about this case is that it all went down in Catamarca. This place was practically run by a single family, the Saudis. And I'm not just talking influence here. They were the government, they were the police, even the courts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, talk about power. This case really shows you what happens when power goes completely unchecked.
So we're talking about a system that was like rigged from the start.
Basically.
And then María Soledad, the 17-year-old student at the local school, she gets caught in the middle of it all. What can you tell us about her?
Everything I've read, everyone I've talked to says she was a bright young woman, well-liked by everyone. But her story takes a dark turn one Friday night in 1990. She was just helping out at a school fundraiser, something I'm sure a lot of us have done. Even had plans to meet her boyfriend later, but he never showed.
And that's where things take that turn, right?
Sadly, yeah. That was the last time anyone saw her alive.
It's those early days, that not knowing. It's just awful.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Days later, María Soledad's body is discovered, and the brutality of it, the state her body was found in, it shook Catamarca to its core. But instead of a full-on investigation, there were whispers.
Whispers of what?
A cover-up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Just imagine this. The crime scene, it's compromised, evidence is gone, poof, vanished. And the official story, it keeps changing. All signs point to one thing: protecting someone powerful.
It's like something you see on TV, you know, where the truth gets buried right along with the victim. But this was real life. Were there any leads, anything that pointed to who might have done this?
Almost immediately, rumors started about this party, a big one, attended by sons of some very important politicians. We're talking guys like Guillermo Luque. His father was a congressman.
Oh.
Yeah, and get this. Several witnesses, they put María Soledad at that party, but here's where things get even shadier. Those testimonies, gone, disappeared.
Wait, what? Vanished just like that? This Saudi family, their grip on Catamarca, was it really that strong?
Let me tell you, this was a system built on fear and silence. But here's where things take an interesting turn, an inspiring one. Amidst all that fear, a spark. María Soledad's classmates, led by their principal, Sister Martha Poloni, they said, enough. They refused to be silenced. Organized these incredible demonstrations. They called them Marches of Silence. Thousands of people week after week demanding justice.
Wow. It's like they say the darkest nights produce the brightest stars.
Yeah.
Right, so you had this huge public outcry, but you're also talking about a system that is just so set in its ways. What changed? What tipped the scales?
Well, those marches, that visual, every week, it captured the nation's attention. It became impossible to ignore. The case blew up into a national scandal, even forced the Argentine president to get involved.
So years of roadblocks, intimidation tactics, it all comes to a head. What happens next?
Finally, after an agonizing, a trial, and not just any trial, this thing was televised. The whole country watching, waiting for answers.
Like, talk about pressure. What was the atmosphere like in that courtroom?
It was more like a circus than a pursuit of justice, you know what I mean?
Really?
Oh yeah. Witnesses would give their testimony and then boom, live on TV, they'd recant.
Oh, wow.
You could just see the fear in their eyes.
Intense. And then there was that judge, caught on camera, right? Didn't that just completely undermine the whole trial?
Totally. It reeked of manipulation, a system more concerned with appearances than actual justice.
So with a trial that seemed determined to protect those in power, did anyone actually face consequences for María Soledad's murder?
After years of delays, blatant miscarriages of justice, 2 men were convicted: Guillermo Luque, the congressman's son we talk about, and Luis Tula. Luque got 21 years for rape followed by death. Tula, believed to have been involved in handing María Soledad over to Luque, got 9 years.
Okay, so there were convictions,
But, and this is a big one, many believe they were scapegoats, taking the fall for a much larger conspiracy. Even today, the full truth about what happened to María Soledad, it's still a mystery.
That's what's so disturbing about all of this feeling that real justice was never served.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many other cases like this are out there, buried under layers of power and influence.
Right. That's the thing about this case. It stays with you. That lack of real justice, those unanswered questions. And, the fight, it didn't end with those convictions.
Right, because it was never just about finding out who killed María Soledad.
Exactly.
It was about uncovering the truth about how something like this could have been covered up, how a system could be manipulated to protect whoever was responsible.
It's a textbook case of deep-rooted corruption. You're talking about an entire system built to shield the powerful, those in charge.
And even with the whole country watching, this investigation just dragged on for years and years.
Yeah.
So while María Soledad's family, they finally had some names, some faces, they were still fighting to understand why, how something so horrific could have happened.
In their fight, it became about something much bigger, you know?
Yeah.
A demand for accountability, for transparency. Because if the people who orchestrated this cover-up were never held responsible, what did that say about Argentina? About justice itself?
Like this case blew the doors wide open on a broken system, and people were demanding change.
And it stopped being about just María Soledad's case. The investigation uncovered corruption everywhere in the Catamarca government.
Wow.
The Saadi family, the ones who basically ran the province, they became synonymous with this culture of impunity, this blatant disregard for the law.
So even though they were never directly tied to her murder, their grip on Catamarca crumbled because of all the corruption this case revealed.
Exactly. It was a huge wake-up call, not just in Catamarca, but for all of Argentina. This case tapped into a growing distrust of those in power, fueled a desire for real reform.
We've talked about the bravery of María Soledad's classmates, of Sister Poloni. But there's another powerful force at play here, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The media.
Huge.
Think about those marches of silence. The imagery was striking, impossible to turn away from. And the media, they brought those images into homes across the country.
Every single week.
Kept the story alive.
Right.
Kept the pressure on.
It's a stark reminder of how important a free press is, especially in a case like this.
Especially when there were obvious attempts to bury the truth.
Exactly. Without the media shining a light on all the inconsistencies, all the injustices, who knows if that pressure would have ever been enough?
And it wasn't just about reporting the facts, was it?
No.
They gave a voice to María Soledad's family, to Sister Poloni.
A platform.
And their message resonated with people all over Argentina. People who felt that same frustration with a system that seemed rigged against them.
It became a collective demand for justice, and it showed everyone a painful truth. Violence against women, especially when it's perpetrated by those in power, it's often ignored, swept under the rug.
But María Soledad's story, it broke through that silence.
It did.
And that's thanks to her classmates, Sister Poloni, her family. They refused to let her be forgotten.
They refused to let her become another statistic.
They faced down years of heartbreak, setbacks, intimidation, and yet they never gave up hope.
It's incredible.
It really speaks to the strength of the human spirit.
Yeah.
But did anything actually change in Argentina because of this? It really makes you think about the impact of this one case, huh?
Yeah.
The way it forced Argentina to really look at itself, the corruption, the power dynamics. Were there any actual changes made? Anything to make sure something like this never happened again?
Oh, absolutely. María Soledad's case, it was like a wake-up call for legal reforms in Argentina, like witness protection.
Right.
Remember how those witnesses were intimidated, recanting their testimonies on live TV? It was, and it led to stricter laws, programs to protect witnesses, especially in cases with high-profile figures, powerful people, organized crime, that sort of thing.
So they had to create a system that was actually designed to protect people who were brave enough to speak out.
Exactly. It wasn't just about protecting them, though. They needed to make sure that investigations were more thorough, less likely to be influenced.
Right.
The case really pushed for reforms in how they handled crimes involving, politicians, high-ranking officials, made it much harder to just make evidence disappear.
So María Soledad's case, as awful as it was, it became a turning point, a chance to create a system that was actually just more equitable.
I think that's a good way to put it. Her case became a rallying cry, and not just for the people directly involved, but for a whole nation that was tired of the way things were. It started a conversation about transparency, about holding people accountable, and that conversation, it's still going on today.
It's hard to believe it took something so horrible to make those changes happen.
I know. It reminds us that justice, it doesn't come easy. And sometimes it comes at a terrible price.
And even when it seems like the system is against you, that you don't have a voice, you can't give up.
That's right. María Soledad's classmates, Sister Poloni, her family, they never stopped fighting for the truth. They turned their grief, their anger into this incredible force for change, and they inspired others to do the same.
It's a powerful story, one that's really stuck with me. The bravery, the injustice, but also the hope. So as we wrap things up here, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think it's important to remember that every voice matters, that when people come together demanding justice, real change is possible. María Soledad's story, it's a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked, but it's also a testament to the human spirit, this belief that even in the darkest times, we can create a better world.
Absolutely. That's something we could all use a little more of these days. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and never stop asking questions.